The problem is that when it comes to us being able to defend ourselves physically, we pretty much know what instructions to follow. We know that we can go to the gym to become physically fit and strong, or we can go and take some martial arts classes to learn how to fight. But when it comes to us being able to defend ourselves psychologically, that's where the instructions become blurry. And I believe that there was a strong reason why Plato and Aristotle used to hold their philosophical discussions at their local gym, because they knew that before becoming a perfect warrior or becoming physically fit, you also had to organize your mind and your thoughts, because the worst type of warrior is anxious warrior. For this reason, I would like to share with you 3 schools of philosophy that come from ancient Greece that helped me a lot in my life. They are not boring academic philosophies, they are very pragmatic, and they teach you how to play kind of tricks, therapeutic tricks on your mind to learn how to become better. Those techniques were very well articulated in a book that I recently read by Sarah Bakewell, which is called How to Live. It is dedicated to the life of a Renaissance philosopher, Michel De Montaigne, whose essays I just admire. I actually have it here right on my desk. It is quite a thick book with many essays. Michel de Montaigne went through a lot of difficulties in his life. He lost many children, like 5 or 6 of his kids died. He lost his father and his best friend like in a single month. He almost died. A very terrible plague surrounded the country. 1/3 of the population of the town that he used to live in died of this plague. He survived all those obstacles with a very calm and rational mind. The 3 schools of philosophy that I'm going to focus on in this video are Stoicism, Epicureanism, and Scepticism. Actually, Stoicism and Epicureanism are very similar to each other. They both believed that the purpose of our life is in achieving what they called eudaimonia. Eudaimonia translates as happiness, or better to say harmony. And the way you could achieve harmony is through ataraxia, which translates as equilibrium. This is where those 2 schools of philosophy begin to diverge, because Stoics believed that the way we could achieve equilibrium and ataraxia is through learning what lies in our control and what lies beyond it. Because if we would focus all our attention on something that lies beyond our control, we'll suffer more in our imagination than we will do in reality. Instead, we should focus on what is in our control, which is our opinion, our judgment, and the actions that we could take. The best example of this idea actually comes from my favorite Stoic, whose name is Epictetus. Epictetus has an interesting kind of a metaphor and story in his book. Imagine you are a hunter and you are in a forest and you have a family to feed who are waiting at home hungry, and you go hunting and you see a deer and you take your bow and arrow, you take an aim, you count everything that you can, you take into account the strength of the wind, the height of the bow and arrow that you should take. You take everything into consideration. The moment the arrow leaves your bow, everything begins to be beyond your control. Maybe the deer will hear a bird or a leaf falling and it will get distracted and will run away, and you will miss the target. And this was beyond your control. You did everything that you could. You aimed as well as you could. You counted everything. And it will be very silly from your side to become angry at yourself, to get into despair that you missed the target, because you did everything that was in your power. I love this metaphor and I remind myself very often. The best way I can kind of convert this metaphor into our modern life is by telling, imagine that you're job hunting promoting, and you see a position at the company that you would like to get. And the best thing that you could do is you can focus on writing your CV well to get noticed. And once you get noticed, you can prepare for the interview as well as you can. You cannot control what questions the interviewer will ask. You can prepare for it, but you cannot control it. You can do all sorts of preparation, but the moment you are giving interview and what questions, what kind of person will interview lies beyond your control. And worrying about things like this is useless according to Stoics. So I would really recommend you to keep in mind this story, and if you would like to dig deeper, I would recommend you my video that is called How to Journal Like a Stoic, where I go in depth in in the ways you can play all sorts of mind tricks and use journaling to get better at practicing Stoicism. The interesting thing about Stoics and Epicureans is the fact that although they had a lot in common, they didn't get along with each other back in the time. The reason for this is that they had very different approach on how we can achieve this state of ataraxia and equilibrium. As I said, Stoics believe that we can achieve it by focusing on what lies in our control and what lies beyond it, while Epicureans had an idea that is very relevant to our time. Epicureans believe that the whole purpose of life is in seeking pleasure. But by pleasure, they didn't mean consumerism or hedonism. Quite opposite to that. They believed that we should constantly focus our attention on what gives us genuine pleasure. They believe that seeking pleasure in excessive amount of material things, luxurious properties and luxurious food, is actually working to us as distraction. They had similar thoughts on grief, and the interesting thing and difference between Stoics and Epicureans is the fact that Stoics were very engaged in political life, while Epicureans intentionally withdrew themselves from it. They believed that politics is all about excessive power. Politics is never about a certain limited amount of power. It's always about getting more and more of it, and it ran contrary to their philosophy. So they withdrew themselves, and there are those famous Epicurean gardens where philosophers came to discuss on how to achieve pleasure. Of course, it is a very difficult way to achieve ataraxia, because it is a lifelong journey, to find what you genuinely enjoy doing and seeking meaning in it. But the way to do it is constantly excluding things that are unnecessary in your life, constantly talking about it, asking about those things in your head. And I believe that this was what helped Montaigne in difficult times. He focused his attention on the essays, which he found very important in himself. He wanted those essays, he wanted those essays to be read and to be helpful to a wider amount of people. So this is kind of a similar way that you can practice. Try to constantly question yourself what action in your life brings you most joy and what you can exclude. It is rumored that skepticism originated not in Greece but in India, because its founder, a guy called Pyrrho, traveled with Alexander the Great all the way down to India, and there he encountered different philosophical and spiritual schools, borrowed their ideas and brought it back to Greece. And the interesting thing about skepticism is that Sarah Bakewell says that it will make you invincible, because it made Michel De Montaigne invincible to his enemies. Montaigne practiced skepticism throughout his political career. Essentially, the central idea of skepticism lies in the word called epoche, which translates to English as "I suspend judgment." It is such a simple idea. It essentially tells you that if you don't know something, if you don't have enough facts, don't don't cast your judgment. There is an example from a contemporary philosopher who says that if somebody will ask you how many grains of sand is there in Sahara Desert, is it an even number or an odd number? You don't know, and it is possible that nobody knows. So the best answer that you can give is that I don't know. It is a simple idea, but it is so difficult to practice it in our day, because the biggest crime of our time is not to have opinion about something, especially if it comes to a political problem. There was a lot of religious divide in France back in Montaigne's time, and the way he tried to avoid all those religious clashes is by not judging either of sides. This was a perfect way for him not to stay neutral, not to ignore politics, but to be able to find compromise, to bring peace. And he was actually very appreciated back in his time for this. One last thing that I would like to mention about this philosophy is that skepticism is not about saying that there is no truth, that you don't have to trust anybody and that you have to be skeptic about everything. No, it is quite opposite. It is about considering the opinions of all sides, of taking all their arguments and then making up your opinion after you have taken into account everyone's idea. This is a very straightforward philosophy, and I believe it is really relevant. And I do understand why Sarah Bakewell says that this will make someone invincible, especially to the enemies, because the easiest way to target someone is by chasing their very solid, very solid opinion. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would really love to recommend you this book, which is How to Live a Life of Montaigne in 1 Question and 20 Attempts to Answer. It is, I really enjoyed reading it. Those 3 philosophies really helped in my life. So if you have any questions, leave it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.